Then it logged me in.
What happened?
He was arrested.
I'm going to give it another minute or two. There is a QR code at the top. If everyone wants to check in, when it asks you what meeting you're attending, just scroll all the way to the bottom and click on the Clear Creek listening tour. And if it asks you about a conflict of interest, you can just skip that. I use the same check-in for our regular meetings.
I read it. I didn't believe
I didn't mean that. Is anybody sitting? Okay.
Is he coming to Rotary in a few weeks? Rotary?
Yes.
So
This is true.
the spicy system was showing the guy having a protection order
Mhm.
that she's not supposed to have.
Mhm.
So he's been arrested before matters, and last time they were.
Did you color your hair?
I did. Thank you for noticing.
It looks good.
Thank you.
Like August.
Good morning.
Sorry.
Good afternoon. You didn't notice, George.
Good afternoon. It's 12:01. Now afternoon.
By the way, because and then they let us know.
All right, in the interest of time, I am going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. I do want to give a shout out to our local woman-owned caterers. Sharon from Square Peg Catering hosted today's event. My name is Dr. Chelsea. I'm going to be going through a name change in May. When I get married, I'll become Shore Miller. So just to help with the name change, Dr. Chelsea is perfectly appropriate. This is my service dog, Coda. Sometimes you'll see him with me. I am a person in long-term natural recovery from substance misuse. I'm actually a product of the opioid epidemic. And I handle all of the facilitation for the Region 10 Council, from running meetings to designing the request for funding, how we evaluate, the discussions around evaluation, all of our standard operating procedures, and most importantly, serve as a point of contact for all of you. So let's just go ahead and go around the room. If you want to give us your name and who you're representing today. We'll start here.
George Marlin. I'm County Commissioner from the Idaho Springs District and our appointee to the GROC.
And our vice chair.
And the vice chair of the GROC.
Yes, on our executive committee.
Cameron Marlin, General Manager of the Rec District.
Yeah, I'm Sarah Gillingham. I'm a psychologist with Human Services.
Nice to meet you. And you are an alternate voting member, correct?
So excited for this. I wanted to just learn more.
Yes.
I'm Emily Roderick. I'm with Public Health.
I'm Rose Morris. I'm the manager for Mountain Youth Network under the Public Health Department.
Janine Mariani, Idaho Springs City Council board member for GROC, and I'm the co-executive director of Court Appointed Special Advocates for Children.
Hi, I'm Joan Hermanthal, County Commissioner for Clear Creek, District 3.
Melissa Van Borgendine, chat, mental health clinician.
Patrick Yeager, community paramedic for the chat team.
Megan Heiler, Public Information Officer for Clear Creek County.
Aaron Crawley, Clear Creek EMS Director.
I'm Nate Busick. I'm the police chief here in Idaho Springs.
And I am Elizabeth Gallagher. I am the director of the chat program.
Current grantees of GROC.
Also current grantee of GROC.
Tim Ryan, Public Health Director.
Member of GROC. So brief agenda for today. I'm going to go over the national opioid settlement. That's where our money comes from. Specifically, the Region 10 Council, our advisory board, some of our 2024 grantees, and then talk about the 2025-2027 strategic plan of the GROC, how they've developed their funding. The currently open request for applications that closes on Monday, how the GROC will be evaluating itself as an ongoing process, and then hold space to get any type of questions, comments, feedback from the community members, service area gaps that you would like the council to consider as they're reviewing requests for application. So our funding is settlement money. We are not federal dollars. So all of the budget cuts and executive orders do not apply to us. The money specifically comes from a series of lawsuits against the manufacturers of opioids and all of the pharmaceutical companies that sold them for being marketed as non-addictive, which they really are very addictive, If you watch the Netflix series Fall of House Usher, that's a really good dramatized story of where this money comes from. There are some federal and state grants that came out of that, so that would be a separate pot of money from me. It is appropriate to braid funding with that. Those federal and state grants can opt out of keeping their money and donate those funds to the regional council, which makes the regional council funding extremely fluid. The goals are to abate or make right the opioid epidemic. So anything that has to do with substance use addiction or recovery. And then prevention is also really highly encouraged. Funds should be based on equity or needs-based distribution. So really focusing on accessibility. I know this equity term there's a lot of apprehension around it with recent executive orders, but it truly is looking at populations who are most affected by substance use disorder addiction, who have less access to recovery support services, and are just in overall need. Funding goes to county, city, and state levels, depending on the agreement that they entered into. The regional council, Region 10, is 3 counties combined into 1. There are, in terms of general spending categories, prevention, treatment, recovery support services, harm reduction. There is a law enforcement public safety pot of money. Some of that can be drawn from planning and coordination from the regional council. Regional or state councils do report to the Colorado Attorney General's office, or the COAG, which runs the Colorado Opioid Abatement Council, or the COAC. And that is the state level pot of money. So every year we have to submit a strategic plan, which is where we intend to allocate funds and different priorities. Then once we've gone through our application process and we've determined awards, we submit an amendment to the plan to make the dollars line up to where we actually submitted money. And then at the end of the year, we submit an expense report to, again, make sure all of our dollars line up. There are transparency requirements. Part of what Region 10 has done is created a YouTube channel. So all meetings, including this one, are recorded and posted to that. We have a public Google Drive. We have a public Google Calendar, so you can subscribe and get calendar invites, meeting updates, virtual links. We also have a standard operating procedure that's in its first iteration, but it basically explains at a very high level how we do business. So what is the application process for funding? What is the evaluation process? It always links you to the specific funding announcement for greater detail. It just gives you that broad overview. How we handle communication with the public, how we handle communication internally, our banking. We've also added a financial report to our monthly meetings just to be transparent with our moving budget. There's always challenges and considerations, like ensuring a long-term impact. So making sure dollars don't go to a one-off event to check the box that we did something, but we know that it does have a long-term impact on attitude or behavior changes around stigma, again, substance use disorder, addiction, and recovery. Community needs assessment. So really ensuring that programs are community-based, not community-placed. So for example, in the first round of funding, there was a large staffing agency from New York who had a really, really good application to do a co-responder program in each of the 3 counties, but no one knows who those people are. They're not familiar with the community. That would be community-placed. So really doing capacity building where we can on community-based programming. So if Clear Creek did submit the co-responder program, maybe they didn't have the strongest application. Are there things that I can do to help build their capacity and make that application stronger to ensure that they can do the work? What other network can I connect them with to get them the training that they need to do the job well, because they're already in this community? And then again, addressing stigma. So that a lot of that comes from TV, that comes from, I'm a product of DARE, which obviously didn't work very well. But any type of stigma around being an addict or the different types of addiction. The only person who can diagnose the alcoholic is the alcoholic. And alcoholism for George looks very different than alcoholism for me. So how are we addressing those emotional and spiritual and social constructs and identity so that people can be self-reflective and not stigmatized? So the pots of money look like this. Again, that federal level, the state level, the regional level, which is Region 10. the county or the local level, implementation partners, and then accountability measures. There are 19 regional councils in Colorado. Again, we're Region 10. So we serve Jefferson County, Clear Creek County, and Gilpin County. We are that 60% share. The local government share is 20%. So this would be like if Clear Creek County had their own dollars. Jefferson County did opt for 1 year to keep some of their money and donate the rest of the money into the pot. So they have a county level task force that dictates how they spend that money specifically. The state share is 10%, and then the statewide infrastructure share is 10%. So this would be like funding the COAG administrators to help to support, run our cost system, which is where we do our expenses. I'm sorry, I'm going to do a lot of like talking at you for the first 30 minutes. The GROC has a 16 voting member structure, and all decision making requires at least 9 individuals. So there's 1 county commissioner per county for 3 total. There's no term limit. There's 1 law enforcement rep for county, 3 total. They have a 2-year term limit. There's 1 municipal or county court system rep that has to be agreed upon by all 3 counties. They have a 2-year term limit. 1 human services representative for county. Again, there's 3 of those, no term limit. 1 public health representative for county. There's 3 of those, no term limit. And then finally, 1 rotating city member per county for 3 total. They have a 2-year term limit. So our roster does look something like this. All voting members have an alternate or a delegate who can fill in for a meeting in their place, be that decision maker or voter. The 4 people at the top are non-voting members. Like I said, I'm the program manager. Chris Habgood is our fiscal contact. And so he does all of our invoicing, making sure that grantees get paid. And then John Bondi and Eric Butler are our legal team.
Can I just
Yeah.
interject for just a moment? A little bit of information. First, all of the jurisdictions in Clear Creek County, except for the town of Empire, have dedicated our local share to the Region 10. That's because the local share is like de minimis. I think it's less than $5,000. And so we definitely do better by participating in the region. The other thing I want to share, we are missing some alternates. Chelsea, you've been telling me about that. We're missing an alternate municipal rep. If you know someone who's on a city council or town administrator of a municipality that cares about this issue, we would love to have them be backing up Janine. Great, thank you for showing up. And what are our other vacancies?
You.
I need a secondary
Yep,
commissioner.
that's it.
I'm guessing I know who might be interested. We can talk about that in the right setting. And then what else are we missing?
That's
Missing-
it. Just those 2.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So, yeah.
The
municipal
other
partners.
highlight is Jefferson County, which we just got situated. Yeah.
And then Chelsea can stop pounding. She likes to have things.
They also have an executive committee who meets monthly to handle more in-depth conversations. And that list is up here. All of the meetings, executive committee and full council meetings are open to the public. They're all recorded. Executive committee meetings are entirely virtual first Monday of the month. Generally, council meetings are the 4th Monday of the month from 1 to 3. Right now, they're hybrid in Jefferson County in the courts and admins building and then on a WebEx link. But we are trying to get that moved into a rotating schedule where we physically come into Clear Creek 1 month, we physically go into Gilpin 1 month, physically are at Jefferson, and then maybe have an entirely virtual meeting. So hopefully that will start happening in August moving forward. Again, there is a full meeting schedule. The QR code will take you to that landing page where you can get all of the video links. The easiest way to do that is to just subscribe again to that Google Calendar.
Oh, it's back.
Oh, okay. Thank you. So several resources for the GROC. We do have a website. This is going to be, right now it's GoDaddy, and it's a very just like plain website, but we are building out a Civic Plus hosted website. That's what the counties use. So we'll be so much more integrative, have more functions, have an embedded calendar, embedded documents. So that will launch in June or July. We're going to wait until after the RFA closes because we don't want to confuse people of where things are located on the website. Again, we do have that YouTube channel. So I recorded a webinar series on how to fill out different aspects of the application. Those are posted. Office hours are posted. All of our meetings are posted. The public Google Calendar, the public Google Drive where we store documents. And then if you ever have any questions, please email me. I'm hyphenating my name so I can keep Seashore because it's just such a cool email. The council does follow general principles for decision making. Spend money to save lives. Don't sit on money. But at the same time, they really want to focus on evidence to guide spending. So we're not going to spend money just for the sake of spending money. It still needs to be a well thought out program, and it should still have some type of evidence of efficacy or impact over a longer term. Invest in youth prevention. Focus on racial equity. The council does not just focus on racial equity, but all equity. So disability status, experiencing homelessness, low socioeconomic status, single parent status, rural community status, which is the bulk of the Clear Creek community. So the council really does think of equity beyond just race. Develop a fair and transparent process for funding recommendations. So against the guidance of the procurement staff of the county, our review of applications, group discussion are open to the public. And there is a point in every group discussion that we ask for opinion from community members who are there. We unfortunately won't be able to show you the entire application. You'll just get a general idea of the snapshot, but any critical questions you can ask so that the council who does have access to the application can take into consideration is always welcome. And then consider future sustainability in all recommendations. Having been on the ground, 1 year of funding is not sustainable. You can't do a lot of impact with that. So the council is allowing, because we have a 2-year strategic plan, as money is released from the Attorney General's office, we have 2 years to allocate that money. So we are allowing a 2-year budget, and then you'll always have an option of renewal beyond that. Knowing that the council can cancel the contract at any time. So if you're not meeting your deliverables each quarter, you probably won't get that second year of funding, but at least we can budget for that in a more of a non-competitive way. We're also implementing learning forums for grantees this year. So every quarter, grantees will meet with me. We'll talk about how they're achieving their goals, how they can do their evaluation, their report, how their budget is going. Hopefully we can prevent any issues that would cause a canceled contract. All right, so the advisory council is still really being shaped to fall in line with the intergovernmental agreement. There's 2 types of advisory board members: discretionary and non-discretionary. Discretionary members have to be nominated by a voting member and then voted on by the full council, and they serve a 2-year term. Right now, there are no ad hoc advisory board meetings. You don't really have that much of a role. This is really the first time that advisory board members have a role, is they were able to apply to be application reviewers. They have to go through a training. They have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. So if that's something that you're interested, that's something you can do. The second advisory board member is non-discretionary. So this would be a member of a school district of any size or a fire district covering a population of 25,000 or greater. We decided just to grant that to all fire district representative and all school district representatives. So you don't need a nomination or a vote. You just have to email me, and then I notify the council that you have accepted this and you have no term limit. So again, those people are automatically involved in the RFA review process. They sign the non-disclosure agreement. So again, I'm trying to keep track of where we have gaps. So I filled this in here. If you or anyone you know fills one of those gaps, please reach out to me or initiate some type of email connection with that individual. I would love to meet them. But just again, trying to make sure that we're well-rounded. These are suggestions. They're not prescriptive, so we can have more categories. We can have more people in each category. This is just kind of like a bare bones suggestion. The QR code right here will take you to a landing page that talks about our 2023-2024 grantees. But the council awarded 4 awards, 3 co-responder programs, and 1 recovery community organization or RCO. Advocates for Recovery specifically wanted to branch out into all 3 regions. They're more Denver based, but they wanted to hire a program manager who would facilitate programming in each county. They would have an office in the county, and then a regional manager who would do most of the grant management, training and development, and then a van to help drive people to meetings or treatment as needed. Yes.
And they're going to be, the Gilpin and Clear Creek County representative will be housed here in this building.
Super exciting.
When do you expect that to happen?
As soon as the contract is signed, shortly thereafter, in those 2 offices.
Cool.
I was not here in the first round, so grantees did not have post award support, which is, I'm sure most of you know, crucial to implementation. So Advocates for Recovery did have some implementation stall. And then again, not knowing if they have a second year of funding, they're hesitant to sign a lease until they know that they would have like more funding, or do they do a 6-month lease? Then when they get the funding, they can try to renew. So I know that they're doing that right now. And all of they submit quarterly reports, and then I summarize those reports and post them to that grantee landing page. So you can always go there and see like what were their goals, where are they at in achieving their goals, how much were they awarded, and how much have they expensed so far. That brings us into the 2025-2027 strategic plan. The council awarded roughly $12 million to give out in funding minus admin. So that's what like my salary and fringe, to pay for our website, any type of signage that I order. I really lean on the public affairs team in Jefferson County, so they send us a bill. Minus that, it comes out to about 11 million to award out to grantees. Almost 14% of money went to prevention, 14% harm reduction, slightly under 30% to recovery, and 31% to treatment, and then about almost 12.5% going to planning and coordination. So the planning and coordination would be like workforce development. So can we create an internship, a paid internship program for Masters of Social Work students to do a clinical internship in a rural community around substance use disorder, co-contributing factors, and then we keep them in that area. Coming from higher ed, I can say a lot of Gen Zers don't want to go into community health programs because they can make more money in private practice, but the people who need their support the most can't afford private practice. So what can we do to do like a needs assessment, get more paramedics up here, get them trained up here? That would fall under planning and coordination. Here's a more detailed breakdown of the strategic plan. So for prevention, it was youth, so school, substance use disorder, mental health education, county-wide prevention education for all age groups. Under treatment, focusing on outpatient, transitionary care from incarceration, MAT or MOUD access, and then inpatient, including residential and supportive housing. Under recovery, they were really looking at sober living, recovery support services, and transportation, inter and intra-county round trip. Harm reduction, anything that fell under harm reduction. And then again, planning and coordination would be that workforce development, and then GROC management, and then additional admin. The council did also set aside a 3% emergency fund or contingency fund following a National Institute of Health best practices approach. This funding will not be open while the RFA is open. This will be open when the RFA closes, and it really is designed to be an emergency. So let's say you rely on statewide Narcan, there's an influx of overdoses, statewide Narcan has run out, then you can submit to the GROC for emergency funds of Narcan, and we already have that money, so it can be instantly released to you. So again, that is not open during the RFA window. It's only for an emergency. Any questions on this? Even if applicants are outside of the strategic plan, but they fall in line with Exhibit E approved uses, they should still submit an application because it's not guaranteed that we're going to get strong applications in this area. Some additional areas have come up in these listening tours, so the council will also take that as guidance into the strategic plan. Going over the request for applications, this is the first time we're using an RFA mechanism in this way. So develop the scope and timeline with the GROC, create contents of the grant application with GROC. I will definitely hold a community comment session next time because the community caught several errors in the application that the voting council did not see. Again, just being reflective and taking that feedback. Develop the application in Civic Plus and then managing all communications. So that webinar series across YouTube. We've also been approved to do application reviews. So you jump on my calendar, send me your documents. I go through everything with you and make sure that it is aligned how we want to see it, only because we don't have a sample application for you. We also want to make sure that the people who need this money most aren't turned off by this scary grant process. Owners and operators who don't have grant writers can do a very manageable application, can do a competitive application in roughly 8 hours, 1 hour per week. And then we close the application. The first round of reviews will be a screening round just to make sure that all application materials are turned in. Chris Habgood and I will do that. I will also develop a sorting matrix. Every application will be graded 4 times, once by one person in each county and then once by an advisory board member. Those scores will be averaged, and then scores above the natural break or 91 and higher will get brought to the second round of full group discussion. I did go over that in detail at the meeting on Monday, so you can watch that recording. But group discussion will last through June 23rd. We're hoping for an award announcement on June 24th. All application materials at that time will be returned back to applicants. So even if your application was not awarded, you'll still get a score sheet that has feedback. In July, I'll be hosting a webinar on how to revise and resubmit for the next round, how to interpret that feedback and build up your application. Sometimes it really is, it just did not fit the strategic plan in that round of funding. And so you don't have a lot of changes to make and you just resubmit. Sometimes it really is just timing. So the GROC does do an outcomes and process evaluation. I did submit a baseline report for my first quarter as the program manager. I joined in October, so I was very much an outsider. That is posted to the YouTube channel, and then it's linked right here for you to see. And then we are opening a solicitation for an external program evaluation team in June and July with a review anticipated for August. So again, that we can just constantly be reflective of what we're doing, how we're doing it, making sure it's aligned with our values and our mission. I can only do so much of that. I have blind spots as well. So yeah, again, really focus on what is the GROC funding going towards. Also working on a public facing data dashboard that says generally how many people were engaged with, basic demographic information, how much money came in, how much money went out, and any other metrics we're able to collect that the community is interested in knowing. So that dashboard should hopefully be built by early next year. What are the outcomes and goals of each grantee? To what degree are grantees achieving their outcomes and goals? And then most importantly, to what degree is GROC mitigating the opioid crisis in Region 10? This is a really difficult question because we have a lot of data suppression in Clear Creek and Gilpin being so rural. So this is an ongoing conversation even at the state level of how do we generate this data, especially without overloading public health staff and first responders. So I am on that data evaluation team. So we do have representation there to get some input. All right, yay, I get to stop talking and now I just get to listen to you. So this QR code will take you to the general Get Involved page where you can subscribe to all the things that we have. You can sign up to share your recovery story. But now I would love to hear from you guys if you have any questions, comments, concerns, if you know of any gaps in your field. Hi.
So the RFA is for the next 2 years. I'm wondering about what reporting would look like in terms of if an organization, say Mountain Youth Network, were to need more funding during that second course. And I have watched the like budget webinars, etc. Thank you for those. But is there like anything that could, for lack of better words, harm our application process if the bulk of our funding would be needed 26, 27 fiscal year and it opens now? Does that make sense?
If I understand correctly, you're asking if it looks bad that you're asking for more money next year, not right now.
Yeah.
Generally, I would say no. However, this is my first time going through any type of funding decision making with the council, so I'm not entirely privy to that inside politics information. I think it really just depends on how you craft your budget. I also heard you ask about like needing evaluation funds. Hopefully, with having our own program evaluation, an external team, we can do a lot of that capacity building ourselves. And then if, like, let's say you do need more money to do evaluation that our external program evaluators are asking for, that would come from the GROC to figure out how we would make that happen. Do you have anything to add to that? Okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, maybe I would just share that this is our second round of funding. And so I think there's a lot of awareness within the body that we're going to learn and we're going to be pivoting. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like I've said numerous times throughout the webinars is that the council, they're not professional grant reviewers like you would think of like NIH and SAMHSA grant reviewers. And they're not yet experts in the field of substance use disorder, addiction recovery. So any crosswalking in your application that you can do for them, like we can't collect these statistics. It's like not in our wheelhouse. So you might have like a really, really large budget ask, but it's only 3% of your total operating costs. That helps the council understand how much money it takes to actually run a program. And again, it helps inform them really, again, community-based, not them telling you figure it out with $50,000.
At the beginning, you mentioned that state agencies have the option to turn over money to the region.
Yes.
Has anybody done that?
Yes, we actually got $6,000 last week from the water company. I don't know how they got money, but I think maybe it's like testing fentanyl in the water. And then they decided that they didn't need that much money. And so we did get an extra $6,000. This budget is not straightforward. And finance was the only class in my 20 years of education that I ever dropped. And it's the one class I need, but we'll budget based off of the projections that come from the Attorney General's office, but then like a county will donate half of what they got to us at a random time, and that will throw off our projections. Or sometimes a settlement will close out early. So we weren't supposed to get a settlement payment till 2028, but they paid all of it right now. So trying to, again, think about long-term impact. The national settlement is in the ballpark of $40 billion over 18 years. And so Region 10 is anticipating, I think, 25 million over 18 years. So our average over the 18 years is 2 million. So again, just because we have 11 million right now, like this year and next year are peak funds, does not mean that we should be spending all of that money. Thinking again, what is that long-term impact?
And just in case you're wondering, Chelsea, you're Dr. Chelsea, I'm sorry. Okay. You are technically an employee of Jefferson County.
Yes.
And you have support from the Jefferson
Yes.
County admin team, right? Like there are a lot of other people that did take their finance classes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the GROC is a well-functioning audited funds, yeah.
Yeah. And we have a lot of support from the Attorney General's office. They do monthly learning forums to talk about, okay, you got extra money, or like they are aware of when settlements pay out early or if they adjust their payment. And so they're really good at helping us kind of plan for that. Yeah.
I didn't read anything in the priorities and strategies that was really specific to STI screening and treatment for these populations. Do you think?
Yeah, so just because it's not in the council strategic plan does not necessarily mean it's not an allowable fund. So really read through that exhibit E, approved uses, that is linked on the funding announcement. And you can just do like a control find STI. I'm fairly positive it is. In there because it's considered a co-contributing factor. Yeah, so it doesn't have to directly touch opioid use. It's co-contributing. Yeah. Any other questions or gaps that you've noticed?
I think in Clear Creek County, we see a lot of stigma. And we don't know the extent of what's going on. And I don't know how to fix that necessarily. But if we knew, right, like I feel like we've got some systems in place that can help, but we just don't know. And so how to identify folks and it goes along with destigmatizing, right? Because up here, what I've noticed in my time up here so far is that there is a ton of stigma around mental health and substance use. So there's a gap. I have no idea how you address that, but something
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
What would you like to see the council fund in this round? I'm just kidding.
She's not kidding.
I know. Well, I mean, I don't mind speaking up to that.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here to support the chat team and the work they do, and Rose and the Mountain Youth Network. I think both are fantastic programs. I like the prevention side with youth, and obviously the in your face, in the gutter sort of drama that they have to deal with us and dealing with those things. So I'll say that on your behalf. So yes, these two organizations are definitely closer to what we do.
Okay.
So, and as far as gaps go, I mean, I wish there was more, and maybe it's just my being naive to it, but there was more treatment opportunity for people in this direct area. So you talk about stigma, and I agree with that. I think that's a hurdle, but you overcome the hurdle, and then
they have to go down to Denver.
Yeah, then where? So that I think I would like to see, and I know that's hard because we're such a small county. So that's just those are my thoughts.
Yeah, that's really true. I just add to that a little bit. The thing I feel like Clear Creek gets often overlooked because we are closer to the metro area. But people who live here don't want to go to Denver for services. They just don't. And so having those services here is, yeah, for sure.
I can share a little bit about just other things that are happening in Clear Creek related to settlement funding, kind of on this need for treatment options. And so the Jefferson Center is building a facility called Soteria Landing. It's at 6th and Union. It's viewed as a kind of a comprehensive recovery campus. One of the things people in recovery, as they go from like different levels of service, it's really difficult for them to stay engaged. Having people be able to step down or step up within the same facility is, I think, going to be a huge benefit to our people. Clear Creek wrote a grant to help fund that last year. Tim Ryan, not here, but thank you for doing that. The reason we supported the grant and wrote the grant was because we got $30,000 to be dedicated to transporting our folks into that facility. And so I think that's going to be a huge benefit. Those are the kinds of innovations that I have my eye on. I think as much as I appreciate that people don't want to leave their community for treatment, I can also appreciate that we are going to struggle to build the kind of capital that would be necessary. I mean, we put a decade worth of effort and focus into this building, and this building is almost full. And we still need capital. So I'm excited about that. And there was another, I want to talk about Soteria Landing, and there was another thing that I'm not remembering.
So that award, what he's talking to, was sent to the State Infrastructure Award that comes out annually. They had a $500,000 cap. It's highly competitive. Every year that pot of money does get smaller and smaller. And then in order to apply, you have to be a participating local government, a regional council. You can't just apply as an organization.
And maybe I'll just throw out there that one of the things that we haven't really talked about here locally, I think any of the 5 jurisdictions, is people are adapting like large residential homes to have like small treatment facilities. I don't know if that's allowed within the codes, the zoning codes of our municipalities in the county or not. I think it is probably not within the county. And so that's something that is worth talking about, I think. If we're talking about paving a way for some level of capital to be up here, it's probably residential conversion. And that is, that's a thorny conversation. Maybe unnecessarily back to the stigma conversation.
I also know a lot of applicants coming in are applying for a transportation line item, whether that be a physical van or mileage to transport people from Clear Creek and Gilpin County to sober living homes or sober living treatment or sober living home or treatment in Jefferson County and then back. So it'll be a full round trip that they have access to.
Last year, we also funded Advocates for Recovery Colorado. That funding included locally housed actually in this building. We have not completed a contract, but Advocates for Recovery Colorado is pretty interested in being in these vacant offices. So peer recovery folks they're not clinicians, they're folks that are in recovery themselves. They go through, relative to what it takes to become a clinician, like pretty limited training. But they're super valuable in terms of outcomes, and really excited to have them on the team. So if you know someone who might be a good fit, please reach out to me, reach out to Dr. Shore. I don't know if they're actively recruiting right this second.
And they are linked on the grantees page. So their job postings are linked. Any questions about the council, about your role in the council?
No, but I was going to bring up in terms of the like sober recovery housing. We were talking about that at Idaho Springs City Council retreat last year, and somebody mentioned like people in the community might not want to go to recovery or sober housing within the community because of the stigma. So that was an interesting thing to me, where if we were to like have something like that, like would people feel empowered enough to actually like access it, or is there too much stigma? So I thought that was interesting. And sober recovery housing, certainly something I brought up as well in terms of the regional housing authority that we just built, and we're strategic planning and talking about goals and just barely getting off the ground. Like we don't even have a PO box like getting off the ground. But in terms of long-term planning and strategic planning for that organization, how they might fit into this.
I do have there is a sober living brief that is posted to the website. There's 8 organizations in Jefferson County that do sober living. And we are having a brainstorming meeting on April 4th, completely virtual, of like, what would a collaborative look like? especially to like save room for people in Gilpin and Clear Creek. What would that look like? Right now, you just have to be CAR certified, which is, it's honestly, it's a joke. You just submit a business plan and then you get a CAR certificate, like Colorado Addiction Recovery Housing certification. That's it. But could a collaboration exist where people submit a more extensive evaluation, scholarship budget? They do quarterly reporting for us and they kind of have a separate pot of money that they can bill for scholarships. What would that look like? And so sober living was also identified as a strategic priority for Region 8, which is Adams County. So I included all those houses. I want to say there's 15 organizations. So they'll be invited to the table. So this is a longer term conversation. We would love to have your input when we get there. I'll send you that calendar invite for sure. Separately, there is an earlier conversation of treatment centers, of what would that handoff look like from treatment to sober living. Can we create a warmer handoff so people don't get lost in transition? I know with Medicaid subsidies and Medicaid cuts, some scholarship asks are going to be coming in for that, to fund treatment for people who need it a little bit longer. But again, what would like a treatment collaborative look like with everyone in the area so that they're not submitting RFA after RFA after RFA? We can do something a little more, again, long-term sustainable. Yes.
I just have a question. Do you guys work with the Advocates for Recovery?
They are a grantee. Yeah. In what capacity are you asking that we work with them?
My understanding, because they're going to be in this building as well. And it's kind of a new thing for our area. I just was wondering, I watched a presentation in another setting and I wasn't sure if it was part of this or not.
Yeah, so they are a grantee. They received the biggest award last year. They're applying for a renewal. But we don't have managerial oversight of them, at least not at this point.
Okay.
In terms of needs, some of the barriers that I see often are like the willingness to go into treatment, but then also worrying about how am I going to pay my rent? I'm going to lose my job. So ideas around like scholarships around how to support people not losing housing in order to get treatment.
Pet care.
I can say that there is an application coming in that specifically addresses that, and they already serve all 3 counties. And they are asking for primarily salaries for case management staff, but their case management also includes basic needs for clients. So that's coming in. Yeah.
We do have an existing standing order through the naloxone bulk fund through the state. But we've heard talk that may not always be there. So should we budget in for the cost of naloxone, or would the council prefer that we continue using the state naloxone bulk fund?
Continue using the state
Yeah.
fund, and then if you ran out, that would be the emergency fund, and that would have like roughly a 1-month turnaround of release of funds.
Okay.
That's also like this conversation with like Medicaid subsidies, is that Medicaid should be paying out. And so if we creating an unintended consequence and a precedent if we give scholarship money for Medicaid? Probably. So now is Medicaid not going to pay out because they're like, go get funds somewhere else? Like I just told you with the naloxone. But at the same time, people are dying now. So in my opinion, who cares who pays for it? Just save some lives. But how we word that policy might be really important. Like a treatment center in their quarterly reporting, maybe we only do 6 months at a time instead of a full year contract. And they have to report every month how they're making progress to recoup money from insurance. So it really is just a short-term temporary. And once you can do it once, you can't do it again, or you can only do it up to a certain dollar amount. those are things that the council is actively considering in preparation for those applications to come in April. That legal is looking into how we can best address them. Right, like we don't want to set that precedent, but
I think I know the state is working to extend.
They are. Yeah, I know the state is getting their thing as well, so, okay.
And if you're having questions about the use of expired naloxone, that's a long conversation, not a short conversation, but it's one I'm willing to have. It's before you throw it away.
Yeah.
Please contact someone and don't throw it away. Okay. What about, so a need that I have foreseen for a long time in this community, maybe going back to when I was discovering syringes on a fairly regular basis in the Georgetown market. Is clean syringe access a need up here? I know it's not offered. Is it a need?
Wish I knew. That's one of the kind of what I was saying, like the stigma, I feel like is so much like we don't know who's out there. We've got some resources to help them, but we don't know how to find them. Talking to them is a whole other level, right? Like that's an expertise kind of treatment thing, but like even knowing who's out there. If there's a police related call with an overdose death, well, now we know, or a successful, Narcan, then we've got some ways, but like, how else can we find them? Because the police piece of things is adding to the stigma. So I don't know.
it might be worth it to do a separate solicitation and work with a data firm that specializes in rural data collection to find that information and give us a baseline.
Well, and I know we've had discussions about this because we make harm reduction kits and we know people are taking them. And we tried to think of a way to track it, even if it was like an anonymous QR code, just saying like, these materials are useful and.
I was thinking that too.
How do you track?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some anonymous survey that goes with them, like, how often do you pick this up? Like,
yeah.
Do you know friends that do this or something like that?
Yeah. And we know how many are leaving. We don't know if they're friends of someone who they know are using or if they're actual users. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
Cause I'm thinking too, like if there could be like an educational campaign to kind of like change that perception and that stigma around what substance use can look like and the different ways it affects people and like what recovery and looking for those services could actually look like. Like just starting very base level, because even when you start asking questions, even if it's anonymous, there's still so much hesitancy to answer truthfully.
People's recovery stories are so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would argue to you, and I'll try to be brief, I would argue to you all, since I have your attention, we know people are using syringes and we know that there are not clean syringes in this community except for purchase at Safeway. We also know that our population on the west end of Clear Creek County of 6,000 or so regularly interacts with 30 to 50,000 people driving through I-70. And I know from my personal experience that these populations are mixing. I view, and I'm curious what the public health, the epidemiology perspective on this, I view this as a really big risk factor. One wrong needle being shared could really result in a local, I'm not going to use the right term, so I'm just not a local, what's the right term?
Like an outbreak or
yes,
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
I was going to say
Kind of.
pandemic because
You're like, that's
so I would just make that argument to you all. I do think it's a need.
Jordan, I would have to say too, I have seen some stories where users are using the toilet paper when they're dirty, they stab it in there and that's the way that they're cleaning it. So in a public setting, people are using that toilet paper on themselves and it could have blood residue, it could have. But they're desperate when they
Yeah.
clean their needle, so.
I worked with the West Virginia University being very rural. They have a Hep C HIV program that has really had a lot of success. West Virginia also has a lot of stigma. So I can reach out to those individuals and get an update on their program and see if there's some type of replicability or scalability that can be done here. Something that we have added in the SOP that has our standard operating procedures manual that has not yet been voted on. So we have a request for proposals that's like a lot more competitive. That would be like our program evaluation when the council decides to enter a contract for a service. We have the RFA mechanism, request for applications, that's grantee. We have the emergency fund. We have a sole source option. But then there's also going to be a special projects. So after RFAs, after community listening tours, voting members or advisory board members can pitch a special project that the council takes interest in to fund that. So still trying to work out what that application would look like, what that evaluation would look like, how that gets voted on. So that should be coming up pretty soon, but this might be a special project that the community can take or that the council can take interest in the next year. Yeah, thank you. Hi, have a good day. We do have 5 minutes left. So is there any other last comments, concerns? No. All right, I will go ahead and just allow you to go ahead. You want to go?
Yeah, just really quickly, I just want to thank you all for being here, especially those of you who are on the council and showing up regularly to those meetings. This is a very important issue. And when I was elected to office, our local attitude about regional collaboration, I think, was different than it is today. We historically have tended to complain about these 3 county collaborations and how hard it is to get resources up into this community. I think that a part of that, what was happening then, was a consequence of us deciding not to lean in, deciding to complain instead. I would encourage you all to continue to lean into this region, to the Jefferson Center for Mental Health, all of these regional collaborations. It's our effort and our relationship building that's going to get us to a position where we're celebrating rather than complaining. So just going to share that.
All right. Please enjoy some snacks. We have our next meeting for sure is going to be on April 28th. That's a full council meeting. We might have an ad hoc virtual meeting on April 14th. It kind of just depends how many applications I get in, how I can sort through conflicts of interest with legal. The executive committee will preview the review matrix on April 7th. So we might not do that April 14th meeting just to give people some time to review applications. So just, again, keep an eye on the website, subscribe to that Google Calendar. That'll be the best way to find out. And then I will send a follow-up email about today's meeting with the recording.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Chelsea.